Today you're going to learn about alternate ways of displaying and interpreting data from an experiment. The first method of displaying data is drawing a line graph. So when you're graphing data, an important thing to note is when you're figuring out which numbers are going to be treated as x-axis numbers and which numbers will be treated as y-axis numbers, the first column always becomes the x-axis numbers. So the first column here is talking about years in our experiment. The table below shows the approximate U.S. consumption of bottled water per person. Construct a line graph of the data. Then use it to predict the amount of bottled water each person drank in the year 2015. So years is our first column, so that will be our x-axis column along the base. So it's going from year 2001 to 2011. To save space, you can abbreviate the years with apostrophes, like 01, and then after 01, the next number is 03, and then there's 05 and 07 and 09 and 11. Notice how they're counting by twos. It's every other, and that's okay. You'll just use counting by twos like they did. Now, it's also important that you don't only write in the numbers themselves to show what the grid marks stand for. You also label it years or year. If you don't label it, people don't know what the numbers are. So label the x-axis according to the title of the first column and label the y-axis according to the title of the second column. So the y-axis numbers will be measuring gallons of bottled water. Now notice how in this chart of bottled water, the largest number is 19.5. 19.5 isn't going to fit on the graph if you're counting by ones. It's going to be way above the graph to get to 19.5. So instead of counting by ones, you're going to count by twos, and you're going to show that by labeling the grid marks 2, 4, 6, 8, and so on. And that will make it so you'll be able to graph 19.5. Now for the graphing of the points that represent our data. So in year 2001, on average, U.S. citizens drank 9 gallons of bottled water per year. So 9 at 01. Okay, 9 would be halfway between 8 and 10. Make a dot there. Next, you have year 2003, 10.5, 10.5, so start at 2003. Now, notice how we're counting by twos, so it wouldn't be exactly in the middle to get to 10.5 because exactly the middle would be 11. So it'd be halfway to be 10.5, be about a quarter in the space between 10 and 12 there. In year 2007, it was 14 gallons of bottled water. In 09, it was 17. And in 2011, it was 19.5. Notice how that dot over 2011 for 19.5 should be more than halfway, because exactly halfway between 18 and 20 would be 19 itself. So 19.5 would be a little bit above that, but not quite to 20. Now, with any sort of word problem or problem where you have multiple sentences in the introduction, when you think you're done, go ahead and reread the question again to see if you've fully finished the problem. So yes, we did this part. We constructed a line graph of the data, but read the sentence. Now use it to predict the amount of bottled water each person drank in the year 2015. Our chart ended at year 2011, so they're asking us to predict past what the chart goes by seeing if there's a pattern in the data we have. And the graph visually shows us that there is a pattern. If we use a ruler, grab a ruler or something else with a flat edge, and we connect the points as best we can predict what future years past the chart would look like. So if we're counting by twos like we were previously, 09, 11, next would be 13, and last would be 15. So in 2015, Okay, so it's over 20. And if this had fit on the graph, it looks like it would be about 2 jumps past 20. And we're counting by 2's here. So 22, 24 to get to this height, where the dot would probably be if this trend continued. So about 24 bottles of water per U.S. citizen. So this is showing data and making predictions using line graphs. That's your first method of organizing data today. The second method is using histograms.